Okay, back to the war.
Give us the red light. Okay, sorry for that. Sorry for that short identification, and then we have a helicopter above us. Few technical difficulties, nothing that Brother Mike cannot overcome. We shall overcome. Okay, so we see once again, there is this concept of there's a war, and when there's a war, so unfortunately, there's always a minority of good people, upright people, unfortunately, that are caught in the crossfire. But that's the way wars are fought, and especially if you're the one that started, as the Rambam, as Maimonides says very clearly, that we are for peace, and they are the ones that are for war. So if you start a war, if you step on somebody's toe and they say, ouch, don't tell them to be quiet. Don't step on his toe. Okay, now, a tremendous, put on a seatbelt for this one. We have a tremendous Khatam Sofer here. A few days ago, 4 days ago, we all read about the city of Shechem, which was bought by Jacob, the holy city of Shechem, which was bought by Jacob. And we remember what happened with Shimon and Levi, two of Jacob's sons. Their daughter Dinah was kidnapped, was abducted by a fellow named Hamor and his father Shechem. And then they pull this deal that, we'll get together, we'll join forces, we'll be a tremendous business union together by joining up forces, and we'll also intermarry. But the sons of Jacob, Shimon and Levi, said you have to circumcise. You have to circumcise. So they go out, circumcise, third day, they're destroyed. How many people were killed? 24,000. Okay, now this should, an antenna should go up in our ears. 1 second here. Now, there's one guy and his father, there's one guy and a father that kidnapped this daughter of Jacob, Dinah, and you blow away 24,000 people. Wow. I don't know if that jives too well with the PC crowd. 24,000 people. Okay, so very interesting. We see here that they didn't call up the police and check out everyone's police records before the action took place. So let's listen to the holy words of the Khatam Sofer. Khatam Sofer writes, on this week's portion, he wrote this 300 years ago, approximately 300 years ago. It's this week's portion, and it was the first day of Hanukkah. First day of Hanukkah. Listen closely to his words. Everything that happened in the city of Shechem, Nablus, what they call today, it's really Naples, but the Arabs cannot pronounce the P. So Naples became Nablus, which is also interesting because they call themselves the so-called Palestinian, which is interesting because they cannot pronounce the P. So it's interesting you call yourself, you have a name which you yourself cannot pronounce, Right. Gotcha. So sit on that for a while. And listen to what he says. He says that what we see, the actions that took place in the city of Shechem, Nablus, are all signs to come what will happen, what happened during the time of Hanukkah. Wow, think about all those conservative and reform dear brothers of ours that are celebrating. They're getting their little menorahs. My menorah. Yeah, they're getting those menorahs ready. They're getting the dust off. Let's dust them up. Let's get the dust off. Oh, because Hanukkah is coming, man. And everybody lights the Hanukkah candles. The holy Chatam Sofer, close to 300 years ago, he writes that every detail, when you look at what happened in the city of Nablus to the daughter of Jacob, Dinah, sons of Jacob, Shimon and Levi, how they destroyed the city. This is exactly the story of what? Hanukkah? Man, I can't believe this. I can't believe I'm celebrating that holiday. We better better eliminate that holiday. Listen to what he says. He brings in proofs. Number one, this battle took place, the battle of Shimon and Levi took place not in the White House, and I'm not talking about the White House of today. Jacob was in his father-in-law's house. His name was White, Lavan. So we just call it the White House, but this is his father-in-law. He was there for 20 years. This was not a battle that took place somewhere outside the land of Israel. This is right in smack in the middle of Israel, in the city of Shechem, Nablus. And also Hanukkah, unlike its counterpart Purim. Because see, we have two rabbinical holidays in the Torah. One is Purim and one is Hanukkah. So Purim, of course, is in Persia. But Hanukkah is taking place on our home court. It's a home game in the land of Israel. So Hanukkah is taking place in the land of Israel. And also the story of Jacob and his daughter being raped. This is also taking place in the land of Israel. That's number one. Number two, the Chatam Sofer writes that if you notice the tribe, okay, and who was the major fight? Who was the major fighters in this bout were Shimon and Levi. But more so Levi, because we see as history unfolds, we see Levi actually continues this round. He continues this path that he's taken of holiness, especially when it comes to messing with Jewish women. So Levi happens to be the third born of the family of Jacob. We have Reuben, Shimon, and Levi. Now, which is the third exile? The first exile is Babylonia. The second exile is a combination of Madai and Paras, Persia. The third exile is the exile of who? Of the Greeks. Oh, the Greeks is the story of Hanukkah. So once again, we have another connection. Who was fighting in the city of Shechem? The third son, Levi. Who's fighting in the story of Hanukkah? The tribe of Levi. Because Matityahu, he was from the tribe of Levi. They were Kohanim. So this is another similar point. Number 4, if I'm not mistaken. How did the battle of Nablus, the battle of Shechem, began with the raping of Dinah? How did the story of Hanukkah begin? The Chatam Sofer writes in his commentary here, he writes here that we know from the words of the holy rabbis of Chazal that there was a decree by the Greeks that any any bride, any Jewish bride that would be married would first have to have relations with various officials of the king of Greece. This was the law. Before you get married, you would be forced to have relations with various government, we'll call them government officials. Take a break.
That one's shooting, I think. I think that's...
Oh, we're still... Okay, Mike has 1,000,001 cameras here. Okay, so we're going on. Excuse me for the interruption over there. Okay, now, so the next thing is, so as this decree is going on in the time of Hanukkah, the daughter of Matityahu, her name was Chana, she starts lifting up her sleeve. Now, that's not exactly a modest thing for a woman to do, start lifting up her sleeve. Now, she's at this, she's at her, the reception party, engagement party, there we go. She's at an engagement party, and there's a lot of important rabbis around and important dignitaries there. And all of a sudden, she's rolling up her sleeve. And all of a sudden, everyone's getting upset. Everyone's getting all upset, and they want to, take her out. And all of a sudden, she calls a timeout on the court, and she says, I don't understand. All of a sudden, against poor little me, you have no problem, coming against me, and I don't know what you want to do to me. But how come you've been sitting for the last couple of years as this decree has continued and no one's doing anything about it? But I'm pulling up my sleeve. That's bothering you, I see. Something here is wrong. So everyone turns and says, what do you want us to do? And she says, I want you to go out and fight. She says, but we're a few in numbers. We're a few in numbers. And Chana's response is the following. Listen to this, unbelievable, Gewalt. She says the following, you're a few? Think about this one. Remember what Shimon and Levi did to the city of Shechem. They were only 2. You are much more than 2. And that is how the revolt began. So once again, we have a connecting line between how the revolt began in the city of Shechem, Nablus, and in the times of Hanukkah, both due to the rape, sexual assault of Jewish women. So that's another point that is brought here. Next, we have a miracle during Hanukkah with pure oil. Now, what's the deal here? The deal here is that there is a law in the Torah that if you have a commandment to do, that's a commandment for the public to do, and the majority of the public happens to be tameh, which means they're impure, you could still go ahead and do that commandment. For example, on Passover, if the majority, 51% of the Jewish people are impure, because let's say they just finished a war, so they've been in contact with dead bodies, so you're still allowed to go on the 14th day of Nisan and go ahead and sacrifice the Paschal lamb. Same too on Hanukkah, when they came and they found oil, they didn't need pure oil, because the law is that they could have used, because it's a community commandment, it's a public commandment, they could have gone to the drugstore and picked up some, your local brand of olive oil at the drugstore. So we see here that the same thing. They did not use the impure oil, and there was a tremendous miracle, and God created pure oil. Same thing in the city of Shechem. What happens? They take the spoils of the city, and there's all kinds of idol worshiping, all kinds of items which are gold and silver, and they're worth tremendous amounts of money. And the Jewish people take the spoils of this war. Now, there's another halacha, there's another Jewish law that if the Gentiles go and they do a certain, there's a certain procedure that they could nullify the idol worshiping aspect of whatever item we're talking about. They have the power to nullify the aspect of idol worshiping. So that's what they did. But even so, Jacob says, just like in Hanukkah, we don't want to just settle for the second best. Get rid of all that stuff. Get rid of it. I know that it's a lot of money, and they just got rid of it. They could have used it. According to the letter of the law, they could have used it, but they did not. So therefore, this is another connection we have to the holiday of Hanukkah. So we see here tremendous things. Now, unfortunately, our time is a little bit short, and there's a lot more here, of course. There's a tremendous amount here more. But just if any of us are thinking out there, maybe the Chatam Sofer was one of these lone wolves out there. If you look in the Shlach HaKadosh, Shnei Luchot HaBrit, he writes on this week's portion, Vayeshev, check it out. He says everything that happened on Hanukkah is already hinted and already brought down in the portion that we read a few days ago, that we read about Shimon and Levi coming into the city and destroying the city of Shechem. So we have here once again the Shlach HaKadosh that writes this. We have the Maharal that speaks about this. How were they able to kill people that were not involved? Okay, and how were they able to, what they call today, everyone's an innocent bystander. In Hebrew, they call them chafim mipesha. And then he talks about when there's wars, etc., there's no such thing as innocent bystanders because you're fighting a nation. As far as the nation is concerned, okay, there is no consideration. There is no consideration of few people that they're there that really don't want to be there, etc. You know, you could not allowed to endanger the Jewish people in order to try to weed them out, and in the meantime, you're endangering tremendously the Jewish people. So that's not allowed to do. So he talks about this, that this is Torah, is that even though that these 24,000 people, we said there was only one or two people that were in, but you have the sympathizers. You have people that support with monetary, you have people that support with their homes, you have people that support on the streets. Without any of this support, the Arabs for all these years would not have been able to function. We do not see any demonstrations by the Arabs. We do not see any demonstrations. We do not see any secret YouTubes with covering their face, talking about what a disgrace this is for Islam by attacking Jews and knifing them off. We do not see any of this. So therefore, we see very, very clearly that there's a communal price that unfortunately, okay, there are good people, and unfortunately, those evildoers on the other side, in this case, the Islam, they did not think about that. They don't really care about them. So we end this class that please have in your prayers. Please have on your prayers to free the Jewish political prisoners, especially during the next couple of days. We're having the time of Hanukkah. Remember what Hanukkah is really about. When you think about it this year, think about it differently. Remember what happened in the Vayishlach, in the portion of Vayishlach with Shimon and Levi. You'll see Hanukkah in a different light. Sorry about the pun, but you definitely see it in a different light. And God willing, we should see speedily before Hanukkah, we should see the release of these tremendous souls, these tremendous 1 in a million people that gave up so much for the protection and the sanctification of the Jewish people, of the Torah, of the land of Israel, and for the sake of God.